Hey guys, this is Smithy. Welcome to my channel. Today's video is a very special video because you guys know how much I love my eyeshadow palettes, and today we're going to talk about my top 10 eyeshadow palettes for spring season. Spring has just started, and as soon as spring starts, I love to play with my pastels, colors, or fresh tones on my eyes. So if you're curious to find which are my top 10 palettes for spring season, then please keep on watching. Before we dive right into the video, if you feel like there's some kind of a problem with my makeup today, I'll link it in the eye cards above. I don't want to explain it more. I went through a lot of trauma here. I did a challenge on my YouTube channel. I'll link it in the eye cards above. This is like a no mirror challenge. So I tweaked a few little things after the video, and hence this makeup look. So let's begin. The first spring palette that I want to recommend to you guys is definitely Huda Beauty's Mercury Retrograde palette. Now this, you guys know how much I love it. I have done several videos on my channel regarding this. This is truly my favorite pastel palette that I own, and I don't think I need any other pastel palette in my collection. Now because of that holographic background, you will definitely won't be able to see the exact color story, but I have done a 5 looks using this palette already on my channel. I have duped Dasha Denona's pastel palettes mainly using this palette, so I'll link that also in the eye cards above for you guys to check it out. I am a person who do not like to wear a lot of pastels on my skin tone, just because I personally feel tan skin tone do not complement the pastels. I can be completely wrong. I'm talking about myself. But these shades, these textures, the way it shines, the way it blends on the eyes, it suits so many skin tones. I feel like this is definitely a universal pastel palette. I love this. I cannot recommend this enough. And I know that a lot of places this palette is on sale. I think they're going to discontinue this. But I would definitely suggest you to go ahead and run and buy it, because this is so much worth the money and a favorite for lots of people. So I would highly recommend this. Now the second palette that I want to recommend is more on the affordable side, but such a beautiful and a unique color story, and this is Colourpop's Ticket to Dreamland palette. This, as soon as I got, I knew that this is going to be such a beautiful color story for spring season. And look at those tones. It's so unusual for Colourpop to go with these tones. I love to wear corals and purples on my eyes any time. And this pinky goldeny, a duochrome shade, this glitter. Even if you're not a glitter person, this just tapped onto bare eyelids gives such a beautiful eye look. I cannot recommend this enough. And these mattes are truly stunning. I know these matte all looks with shimmer in it, but if you are blending it out with a big fluffy brush, those shimmers will not perform on the eyelids. Only when you go with a packing brush on the lid, that is when these shimmers will show. But all in all, I personally feel that this is such a beautiful palette. It also does come with a mirror also. And these pan sizes are also definitely a little more on the bigger side as compared to the normal size of the Colourpop shadows. So I would highly recommend this. Now let's talk about an eyeshadow palette that I actually have applied on the crease. So the corals, the pinks that you see on my background of the eye, the crease of the eye, is all coming from this palette, and this is the Corda Rosa palette from Sigma. I cannot tell you guys how much I love this palette, because I really do. I love the color selection of the palette. I love the way how these mattes blends. The shimmers are truly stunning. This topper shade and this topper shade. I say topper shade, but this definitely has a lot of base in it too. But it is so sparkly, you have to see it. All of them are stunning. So let me do 2 mattes and 2 shimmers, because why not, yeah? So this, absolutely breathtaking. Are you serious right now? Look at that. Look at that. If you guys have not tested Sigma eyeshadows before, I would highly recommend Sigma. I love their color story. I love their eyeshadow formula. Definitely one to try for sure. I absolutely love the way the shadows blend. My favorite out of their palettes in general, I would say, my favorite would be Corda Rosa as well as the Ambience palette. I highly recommend that. Okay, now let's talk about an indie brand that completely knocked my socks off in 2021, and I'm talking about Odins Eye. Now, when I think of Odins Eye, the spring palette that like jumps out to me is Odins Eye's Hummingbird palette, and this was in collaboration with Tina from Fancy Face. Yeah, I cannot even with this palette, because this is such a beautiful palette with such beautiful color story. This is definitely like my rainbow palette. Like, I stay away from colors as much as I can. Doesn't seem like this, I know, but this is a challenge video. But these colors looks amazing, blends beautifully. It is so dimensional. It does have like one multi-chrome shade. I don't know if you guys can see it or not. It goes from like a gray blue periwinkle shade to like a strong pinky. It has, oh my god, so many shades in that. Stunning. This is such a beautiful bronze. Used with any mattes here, looks stunning. The purple, absolutely beautiful. This pink, breathtaking. I know it looks like electric pink, which it is, but this, I love the way I created like the look from this palette in my review video. Love it. I also did a 3 looks using this palette. I love the way how all these shadows perform. I love the color story, the artwork, the shadows, how it performs. Definitely a brand to look into is Odins Eye, and this is definitely one of my favorite spring palettes for this season. Now let's talk about eyeshadow palette, which is actually one of my favorite palettes, and this was like my 2020 favorite palette, like my #1 palette for 2020, and I'm talking about Too Faced Pumpkin Spice palette. Now I know Pumpkin Spice palette was released in the fall season, and when you think about pumpkins, you think of fall season, and we're talking about spring palettes, I know, but the color story is truly year-round long like palette. When I see this color story, as long as I'm like not digging into this murky green, and I would say this like orangey, like a warm tone shade with this red, if I cover these 3 shades, I'm perfectly getting like a spring palette in my opinion. Like, this whole row is spring to me. These corals and pinks are spring to me. These deep dark tones is spring to me. I love this palette for spring season. That is when I get the maximum amount of use out of this palette. I actually do use it in the fall season too, but for spring season, I think you can create some beautiful, beautiful looks out of this. So if you guys do have the pumpkin spice palette, I would highly recommend to get that out from your stash and use it in the spring season, because it's truly amazing. Now the next palette that I have to recommend is from Dasha Denona, and it is her 5-pan palette, and this is her coral palette. I truly am a big fan of this palette. I know, like I've recommended this enough, but for a reason. Like, I have this as my blush today. I have this as my highlighter today. I just topped it off on top of that challenge video. So yeah, if you're wondering, oh, Smithy, you didn't use that. Yes, I topped it on top of it. And then I have a little bit of this on my crease too, just to blend everything together with the blush. But I love this palette so very much. This is such a beautiful color story that can create so much variety of looks. You won't even expect how many looks you can create with this palette, but it is truly amazing. This center shade is definitely like a topper shade. It is a duochrome. It's like a purpley, pinky, I don't know, peachy shade, but this is definitely like a topper shade, which on top of any of the mattes in your collection would look absolutely stunning. So let me swatch. Actually, the mattes are like my favorite. My favorite actually from the palette is this peach shade, because I just love peaches. Like, look at that. Look at the metallicness. And that topper shade that I'm talking about, that like it goes for like a transparent base. Can you see that? But when the light hits it, it's such a beautiful shade. Like, definitely worth trying, I would say. And I don't know if you guys can actually find it or not. I actually picked it out on a sale price in Sephora. I'll link it in the description box below if I can find it for you guys. But if you do have it, definitely play with these shades if you have it in your collection. I would highly recommend this for spring season. Okay, now let's move on to a palette that is very close to my heart, and I absolutely love to apply this on spring season. Actually, year all around. I definitely consider this as like one of my favorite palettes in my collection, and this is from Sydney Grace, and this is the Tiny Marvels palette, which was in collaboration with Mel Thompson. I just love playing with this. I'm pretty sure you guys all know this palette and Mel, and this color story is truly breathtaking. This portion is all like spring to me. And when I go to this portion, even these two shades are like spring to me. Like I love this palette during especially spring and fall season. Love it. Like I get so happy when I use this palette. I cannot even say. The brightness in my inner corners to like the scoop into like a cut crease is using this shade, which is called Marvel from the palette. I love Marvel just mixed out with like a deep dark cool tone brown shade. Love it. This Marvel with this beautiful deep burgundy shade, stunning. Absolutely stunning. The pastels in this palette is also breathtaking. Like these pastels, I actually do have a look only by using like these three shades from the palette, this column. Stunning look. Like I love the pastel look that I created with this palette. Absolutely breathtaking. The artwork, the formula, the quality, outstanding. Okay, now if you guys are not into pastels and if you guys want like similar colors but more like deeper and muted in tone, I would highly recommend you guys to check out Hip Dot's palette, and this is the Hip Dot's Zion palette. I would say this is like a more mature version of the pastels. You still can find those periwinkles, those orangey tones, those pinky tones, but it's definitely more muted and a little more deep. So if you are like more on the tan to dark to deep side, I would highly recommend this palette, and this quality is absolutely stunning. The color story is breathtaking. This is definitely matte heavy palette. So if you love mattes, I would highly recommend this because this palette only has like 4 shimmers. This beautiful pinky shade, this beautiful copper shade, there's a champagne shade and a beautiful like cool tone purpley shade, and rest all of the mattes complement those shimmers so very well. And this is definitely like a beautiful quality palette from an indie brand that you should definitely consider, and I absolutely love it. Okay, now when we talk about spring season, it just screams purple to me. And what is my favorite purple palette? If you guys don't know, Norvina 5 from Anastasia Beverly Hills is like my favorite purple palette. I know I have like spoken so much about this palette. From the time this is landed in my collection till today, I've absolutely loved each and every shade. There is not one dud in this palette. And if you love purples, oh my god, I do not want to get started, but this is like my dream palette for purples. I can marry this palette. If this was a person, this would be my husband. Yeah, I don't want to say more about it, but beautiful palette, beautiful color story. The dimension that this palette gives on the eyes is truly spectacular. I have again done 5 looks using this palette on this channel. I link it in the icons above. If I do have more videos to link in the icons above, I'll link everything in the description box below for you guys, so definitely do check it out. Now last but certainly not the least, I wanted to give you a palette which is like a colorful palette, but it's not like a rainbow palette. So when I thought about that, I definitely wanted to include Pat McGrath's Celestial Odyssey palette. Now I again do not know whether you guys can find it or not, but this is again with beautiful pinks, those greens, those blues, but still such a beautiful colorful palette. I'm pretty sure if you guys are a regular watcher on this channel, you know again how much I rave about this palette and Pat McGrath's, especially her holiday palettes, her smaller pan palettes, like from the mothership. Yeah, let's not go there, because I have a lot to say. But this is definitely a good Pat McGrath palette. If you guys can find it at a discounted price, I would highly recommend this, because this is definitely like getting a Pat McGrath quality eyeshadow for a little more on the lesser cost. When I say lesser cost, it's not like drugstore price. If you guys know Pat McGrath, you know it's a luxury brand. So this was like $78 when it was released, but I'm not sure if she does have it in her website or not. Again, whatever I can find it, I would definitely link it in the description box below for you guys. But again, I definitely did want to mention this because I know a lot of you guys do have this palette. So I would definitely try this out again in the springtime. Cannot wait to do more like shop my stash kind of videos. I love playing with eyeshadow palettes. If you guys don't know, I am a fanatic of eyeshadow palettes and I love creating eyeshadow tutorials on this channel. I love top recommendations for eyeshadow palettes, for base products, for everything actually. I am a lover of makeup. So all of these things just creates so much excitement for me. And if you guys are also super excited about makeup, you definitely need to consider subscribing to this channel because I love you guys so very much and I love makeup. Actually, do leave me down in the comment section below which is your favorite spring palette in your collection. And if you did like this video, do give it a thumbs up and also subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and ring the notification bell so that you're notified every time that I post next. I generally upload 3 videos every single week, every Tuesdays, Thursdays and Saturdays at 9 AM Eastern Standard Time. Until next time, I'll see you guys in my next video. Bye guys.